Mars. The red planet. Closest to Earth in our solar system. Surely life must exist on it? We dreamt about the builders of the canals that we could see by telescope, and about ruined cities, lost Martian civilizations, the possibilities of alien contact. Then the Viking and Mariner probes went up and sent back nothing. Mars was a barren planet. Lifeless, sterile, uninhabited. Free real estate. In 2019, the first man set foot on the surface of Mars. John Boone, American hero. In 2027, 100 of the Earth's finest engineers and scientists made the first mass landing. Their mission? To create a new world. And some of them took that too literally. To terraform a planet with no atmosphere, an intensely cold climate, and no magnetosphere. Into an Eden, full of people, plants, and animals. It is the greatest challenge mankind has ever faced. The ultimate use of intelligence and ability. Our finest dream. John Boone has been murdered. And the people of Mars have revolted. Magneto was right. Oh shit. I don't remember. Terrorism. It was not hard to destroy Martian towns. No harder than breaking a window or popping a balloon. Nadia discovered this while holed up in the city offices of Lasvitz, a tent town which had been punctured one night just after sunset. All the surviving occupants were now huddled in the city offices or the physical plant. For 3 days, they had spent their time going out to try to repair the tent and watching TV to try and figure out what was going on. But the Terran news packages were concerned with its own wars. Oh yeah, so there's war on Earth and there's war on Mars. But the Terran news packages were concerned with its own wars, which seemed to be coalescing into one. Only infrequently was there a brief report on the wrecked Martian towns. One said that many domed craters had been hit by missiles from over the horizon, usually in sequence where oxygen or aerated fuels were introduced. Usually in sequence where aerated fuels or oxygen were introduced, and then quickly followed by an igniter that caused explosions of varying severity. From anti-personnel fires to blasts that blew the domes off, to really big explosions that in effect re-excavated the crater. Anti-personnel oxygen fires appeared to be the most common. These left the infrastructure intact, for the most part. tent towns were simpler still. Most of them had been punctured by Phobos-based lasers. Most of them had been punctured by Phobos-based lasers. Some had had their physical plants targeted by guided cruise missiles. Others had been invaded by troops of one kind or another. Their spaceports seized, armored rovers crashing through city walls, and in rare cases, rocket pack paratroopers descending from above. I know. This is a lot. But I don't remember any of this. I mean, I remember it vaguely as I'm reading it, but it is a page and a half from where we left off last week. Nadia watched the... Let's let it make up for the lack of summary. Nadia watched the jiggling video images that so clearly revealed the fear of the camera operators, her stomach collapsing into a tight walnut inside her. Nut inside her. You can't say that. What are they doing? Testing methods? She cried. I doubt it, said I doubt it, said Yeli Zudov. It's probably just a matter of different groups using different methods. Some look like they're trying to do as little as damage as possible. Others seem to want to kill as many as they can. As many of us as they can. Make room for emigration. Nadia turned away, sickened. She got up and took off for the kitchen, bent slightly over her collapsed stomach, desperate to do something. In the kitchen, they had turned on a generator and were microwaving frozen dinners. She helped hand them out, moving up and down a line of people sitting in the hall outside. Unwashed faces, splashed with black frost-nip blisters. Some people talked animatedly, others sat like statues, or slept leaning against each other. Most of them had been residents of Laswitz, but a good number had been driven in from tents or hideouts that had been destroyed from space, or attacked by ground forces. Is stupid, an old Arab woman was saying to a gnarled little man. My parents were Red Crescent in Baghdad when the Americans bombed it. If they have the sky, is nothing you can do. Nothing. We have to surrender. Surrender as soon as possible. But to whom? The little man asked wearily. And for whom? And how? To anyone, from everybody, and by radio, of course. The woman glared at Nadia, who shrugged. Then her wrist pad beeped. And Sasha Yefremov babbled into a tinny... And Sasha Yefremov babbled in a tinny wrist phone voice. The water station north of town had gone up in an explosion. And the well it had capped was now fountaining in an artesian eruption of water and ice. I'll be right there, Nadia said, shocked. The town's water station tapped the lower end of the Laswitz aquifer, which was a big one. If any significant part of the aquifer broached the surface, the water station and the town, and the entire canyon they lay in, would disappear in a catastrophic flood. And worse, Burros was located only 200 kilometers down the slope of Syrtis and Isidis, and the flood could very conceivably run that far. Burros. Its population was far too large to evacuate, especially now that it had become a refuge for people escaping the war. There was simply no other place to go. "Surrender!" the Arab woman insisted from the hall. "All surrender!" "I don't think that will work anymore," Nadia said, and ran for the building's lock. And that was where we left off last week. I don't think that will work anymore. A part of her was immensely relieved to be able to do something. To stop huddling in a building, watching disasters on TV, and do something. And Nadia had planned and overseen the construction of the Lauswitz only 6 years before. So now she had an idea of what to do. The town was a Nicosia-class tent, with the farm and physical plant in separate structures, and the water station fell off to the north. All the structures were down on the floor of the big east-west rift called Arena Canyon, the walls of which were nearly vertical and half a kilometer high. The water station was located only a couple hundred meters from the canyon's north wall, which in that area had an impressive overhang at the top. As Nadia drove with Sasha and Yeli to the water station, she quickly outlined her plan. "I think we can bring the cliff down onto the station, and if we can, the landslide ought to be enough to cap the leak." "Won't the flood just carry the landslide's rock away?" Sasha asked. "It will if it's a full aquifer outbreak, that's sure. But if we cover it when it's still just an uncapped well, then the escaping water will freeze in the landslide and hopefully form a dam heavy enough to hold it. Hydrostatic pressure in this aquifer is only a bit greater than the lithostatic pressure of the rock over it, so the artesian flow isn't all that high. If it were, we'd be dead already." She braked the rover. Out of the windshield, they could see the remains of the water station, under a cloud of thin frost steam. A rover came bouncing full speed toward them, and Nadia flashed her headlights and turned the radio to the common band. It was the water station crew, a couple named Angela and Sam, rabid with the adventures of the last hour. When they had driven alongside and finished their story, Nadia explained to them what she had in mind. "It could work," Angela said. "Certainly nothing else will stop it now. It's really pumping." "We have to hurry," Sam said. "It's eating the rock at an unbelievable rate." "If we don't cap it," Angela said with a certain morbid enthusiasm, "it's gonna look like when the Atlantic first broke through the Straits of Gibraltar and flooded the Mediterranean basin." That was a waterfall that lasted 10,000 years. I've never heard of that one, Nadia said. Come on with us to the cliff and help us get the robots going. During the ride over, she had directed all the town's construction robots from their hangar to the foot of the north wall, next to the water station. When the two rovers got there, they found a few of the faster robots had already arrived, and the rest were grinding over the canyon floor toward them. There was a small talus slope at the foot of the cliff, which towered over them like an enormous frozen wave, gleaming in the noon light. Nadia linked into the earth movers and bulldozers and gave them instructions to clear paths through the talus. When that was done, tunnelers would bore straight into the cliff. See? Nadia said, pointing at an areological map of the canyon that she had called onto the rover's screen. There's a big fault there, behind that whole overhanging piece. It's causing the lip of the wall to slump off a bit. See that slightly lower shelf at the top? If we set off all the explosive we've got at the bottom of that fault, it's sure to bring down the overhang, don't you think? I don't know, Yelly said. It's worth a try. The slower robots arrived, bringing an array of explosives left over from the excavation of the town's foundation. Nadia went to work programming the vehicles to tunnel into the bottom of the cliff. And for most of an hour, she was lost to the world. When she was finished, she said, "Let's go back to town and get everyone evacuated. I can't be sure how much of that cliff might come down, and we don't want to bury everyone. We've got 4 hours. Jesus, Nadia. 4 hours. She typed in the last command and started up their rover. Angela and Sam followed with a cheer. You don't seem very sorry to leave, Yelly said to them. Hell, it was boring, Angela said. I don't think that's going to be much of a problem anymore. Good. The evacuation was difficult. A lot of the town's occupants didn't want to leave, and there was barely room for them in the rovers at hand. Finally, they were all stuffed into one vehicle or another, and off on the transponder road to Burroughs. Laswitz was empty. Nadia spent an hour trying to contact Phyllis by satellite phone, but the comm channels were disrupted by what sounded like a number of different jamming efforts. Nadia left a message on the satellite itself. We're non-combatants in Syrtis Major, trying to stop the Laswitz Aquifer from flooding Burroughs. So leave us alone. A surrender of sorts. Nadia and Sasha and Yelly were joined in their rover by Angela and Sam, and they drove up the steep switchbacks of the cliff road onto the south rim of Arena Canyon. Across from them was the imposing north wall. Below to the left lay the town, looking almost normal. But to the right, it was clear something was wrong. The water station was broken in the middle by a thick white geyser, which plumed like a don't laugh, which plumed like a broken fire hydrant, and then fell into a jumble of dirty red-white ice blocks. This weird mass shifted even as they watched, briefly exposing black flowing water which frost steamed madly. White mist pouring out of the black cracks and then whipping down canyon on the wind. The rock and fines of the Martian surface were so dehydrated that when the water splashed onto them, they seemed to explode in violent chemical reactions. So when the water ran over dry ground, great clouds of dust fired off into the air and joined the frost steam swirling off the water. Sax is gonna be pleased, Nadia said grimly. At the appointed hour, 4 plumes of smoke shot out of the base of the northern wall. For several seconds, nothing else happened, and the observers groaned. Then the cliff face jerked, and the rock of the overhang slipped down, slowly and majestically. Thick clouds of smoke shot up from the bottom of the cliff, and then sheets of ejecta shot out, like water from under a calving iceberg. A low roar shook through their rover. Just before a massive cloud of dust cut off their view, they saw the water station covered by the swift, tumbling edge of the landslide. Just before a massive cloud of dust cut off their view, they saw the water station covered by the swift, tumbling edge of the landslide. Read Mars book? ? Aren't you my biggest fan? ? No. Angela and Sam began cheering. How will we tell if it's worked? Sasha asked. Wait till we can see it again, Nadia said. Hopefully the flood downstream will have gone white. No more open water, no more movement. Sasha nodded. They sat, looking down into the ancient canyon, waiting. Nadia's mind was mostly blank. The thoughts that did occur to her were mostly bleak. She needed more action like the last few hours. The kind of intense activity that gave her no time to think. Even a moment's pause, and the whole miserable situation crashed back in on her. The wrecked cities, the dead everywhere, Arcady's disappearance. Okay, all we knew before is that Arcady got burned. And I just learned that he disappeared, so he got incinerated. I thought I was holding on to hope. I was like, yeah, he caught fire in the atmosphere, but maybe he survived. Fool. Arcady's disappearance. The dead everywhere. The wrecked cities. And no one in control, apparently. No plan to any of it. Police troops were wrecking towns to stop the rebellion. And rebels were wrecking towns to keep the rebellion alive. It would end with everything destroyed. Her whole life's work blown up before her eyes. And for no reason. No reason at all. She couldn't afford to think. Down there, a landslide had overrun a water station, hopefully. And the water rushing up the well had been blocked and frozen, making a complete dam. After that, it was hard to say. If the hydrostatic pressure in the aquifer was high enough, a new breakout might be forced. But if the dam were thick enough, well, nothing to be done about it. Although, if they could create some kind of escape valve to take the pressure off the landslide dam. Such a waste. Slowly, the wind tattered the dust away. Her companions cheered. The water station was gone, covered by a fresh black landslide that spilled out from the northern wall, which now had a big new arc in its rim. But it had been a close thing, not anywhere near as big a landslide as she would have hoped. Laswitz itself was still there, and it appeared that the layer of rock over the water station was not all that thick. The flood seemed to have stopped. It was true. It was motionless. A chunky, dirty white swath, like a glacier running down the middle of the canyon. And there was very little frost steam rising from it. Still. Let's go back down to Laswitz and look at the aquifer monitors, Nadia said. They drove back down the canyon wall road and into Laswitz garage. They walked down the empty streets in walkers and helmets. It was odd to see their refuge of the last few days empty. Inside the aquifer center, they studied the readouts from the array of underground sensors. A lot of them were no longer functioning, but those that were showed that the hydrostatic pressure inside the aquifer was higher than ever before, and increasing. As if to emphasize the point, a small trembler shook the ground, vibrating the soles of their boots. None of them had ever felt such a thing on Mars before. Shit, Yelly said. It's gonna blow again for sure. We have to drill a runoff well, Nadia said. A kind of pressure valve. But what if it breaks like the main one? Sasha asked. If we put it at the upper end of the aquifer, or midway, so that it takes some flow, it should be fine. Just as good as the old water station, which somebody else probably blew up. Or else it would still be working fine. She shook her head bitterly. We have to risk it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, then maybe we cause an outbreak. But if we don't do something, it looks like there'll be an outbreak anyway. Thank you, mods. And I have to pee, and I'll be right back.